All right, everybody, it's Bruce from the Epic Experiment, and we are back with another deck tech. This week, we are highlighting Ovika Enigma Goliath. Now, I'd like to say that I got all the inspiration for this all on my own, but I had a little help from another content creator, and I saw their list, and I was like, hey, that looks cool. I think I can put my own spin on it. So let's talk about Ovika. So Ovika is a gigantic Phyrexian nightmare. She is 5 blue red for a 6/6 flying Phyrexian nightmare with ward 3, pay 3 life. So 3 mana and 3 life to target her. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create X 1/1 red Phyrexian goblin creature tokens where X is the mana value of that spell. They gain haste until end of turn. That line of text where they gain haste is super valuable. Now, Ovika is going to just flood the board with a bunch of tokens. And so you need to find non-creature spells to cast. So there's a lot of reliance on non-creature spells in this deck. But you're also not in green. So you need to cast a lot of mana rocks in order to get there. So, and the nice part of this one is because she rewards you for playing expensive things, the more expensive they are, the better it gets. So, what have we got? We've got the good old Sol Ring. Can't go wrong with that. We've got our 2 mana rocks. We've got an Arcane Signet. That's Sol Ring's best buddy. We've got a Mind Stone. Sure, sounds good to me. We've got a Felwar Stone. Again, looks good to me. And then we have a Fire Diamond and a Sky Diamond that are less desirable because they come into play tapped, but they are 2 mana. And since the curve on this one tends to track high, having a couple of 2 mana options is not a bad choice. Particularly since you really want to go from 2 to 4 if you can. However, there are lots of 3 mana rocks to play. So we've got Relic of Legends. This one's a really terrific one from Dominaria United. Because you can tap legendary creatures to help pay for stuff too. Yes, please. Worn Power Stone. Yep, that one's good. Tracks. Commander Sphere. Commander Sphere is good in this one. It's 3 mana, makes a mana, or you can cash it in for a card. Heraldic Banner is terrific because when you're done making all those goblins, now they get pumped up and can do a little bit more tussling. Sounds good to me. Midnight Clock. This one is excellent and is pretty inexpensive too. 2 and a blue for an artifact. Tapped out of blue. 2 and a blue, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When the 12th hour counter is put on the Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards. Exile Midnight Clock. So, it's a mana rock, then it turns into draw 7. Yes, please. We have a Coalition Relic. Alright, super handy. We have a Glittering Stash. I really like Glittering Stash, so 2 and a red. For an artifact treasure, tap to add a red, put a stash counter on it, and then sacrifice Glittering Stockpile, add X mana of any one color or X number of stash counters on Glittering Stockpile. And we have Decanter of Endless Water, which is make sure you don't need to have a hand size. All right. Then we have our 4 mana rocks. We have a couple, not too many. We have a Stone Speaker Crystal. So taps to add 2. 2 and tap, sacrifice the crystal, exile any number of target players' graveyards. Super handy as I have a little bit of graveyard hate, particularly when you're not in black. Hedron Archive, enough said, this is part of that same cycle with Mind Stone. And then we have Firemind Vessel, again, super handy, makes 2 different colors of mana. Then we have some bigger, chunkier rocks. We've got ourselves a Gilded Lotus. Yeah, that one's still floating around. We have a Dreamstone Hedron. All right. And we've got ourselves Coveted Jewel. This one is actually really fun to put in your deck, so you're looking to make things entertaining. So, when it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Tap to add 3 mana of any one color. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel, and they can untap it. So it's kind of like the Monarchy, but on steroids. So, all those mana rocks are going to help you make sure that your Ovika stays on the battlefield, and they're going to generate goblins all the time for you. All right? But with all that mana and all those things, you're going to need cards. You're going to need things to do with all that mana, and you need to keep the flow of cards coming to your hand. So lots of ways to draw this card. Ravenous Amulet. So this one's a pretty cheeky little way to do it that you can have in your right from Foundations. When it taps, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. Perfect. Got my attention. All right. Put a soul counter on this artifact. Activate only as a sorcery. I'm going to be honest. The next part is about activating this and deal damage equal to the soul counters. I don't care. I'm never doing that. If it ever occurs, perfect. But in most instances, it's not. We've got the Spectral Sailor. This is just a cute little creature. But 3 and a blue, draw a card. It's got flash, it's got flying. Just a good little dude. All right. We have Lunar Insight. 2 and a blue, draw a card for each different mana you value among non-land permanents you control. All right. Just very useful stuff. Arcane Epiphany. 3 blue, instant. This costs 1 less. You control a wizard. Draw 3 cards. So 5 mana, draw 3 cards. Yes, please. We'll talk about the wizard business in a second. All right. Into the story. 7 mana, instant. This spell costs 3 less to cast if an opponent has 7 or more lands in their graveyard. Draw 4 cards. So this is really, usually this reads pay 4 mana, draw 4 cards, make 7 goblins. That's how that one usually plays out. Stock Up. This is a new one from Aether Drift, which is super good. 3 mana, look at top 5, put 2 in your hand. So it's like a poor man's version of Dig Through Time. Speaking of Dig Through Time, oh, there it is, Dig Through Time. So this one's super good. Blue, you can delve away the rest of it, but you get the 8 goblins, and you look at the top 7, put 2 in your hand. All right, we've got his friend. We have Treasure Cruise. So 8 mana, so usually you pay a blue and delve away the rest of it to draw 3 cards. Keep the flow of cards coming to your hand. Memory Deluge plays an impression of Dig Through Time. So the first time you cast, you look at 4 cards, put 2 in your hand. Then the second time through, when you flash it back for 7, you get to put 2 in your hand from looking at 7. All right, the last ones here is because you're making all those tokens, you're going to have lots of things to pay for convoke costs. So, Meeting of the Minds, 4 mana, convoke, instant, draw 2 cards. You use your goblins to tap to help pay the mana cost. Looks good to me. Artistic Refusal, same thing. So this one's got convoke, it's 4 blue. Choose one or both. Counter target spell, draw 2 cards, and discard a card. So sometimes you need to draw, sometimes you need to counter, sometimes you can do both. And then Transcendent Message, which is blue, X. Convoke, draw X cards. So you'll tap a bunch of those goblins to make a bunch more goblins and draw a bunch of cards. All right. Now, with all those spells and things that we're going to be doing, we need a couple ways to make them a little bit cheaper, make things just a little bit easier to cast. So, to start with this one, this is classic. We have Goblin Electromancer. Instant sorcery spells cost 1 less. We have his slightly improved buddy. We have Stormcatch Mentor. So 1 and a blue for a 1/1 with haste and prowess. And same text. Then we get to some fun ones. Magnus the Red. So 3 blue-red for a 4/5 flying legendary creature Demon Primarch. Unearthly Power. Instant sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast for each creature token you control. Since I'm likely to have a whole bunch of creature tokens, that's just good fun. Sorcerer's Class. This one's blue and a red for an enchantment. When Sorcerer Class enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards and discard. Perfect. Let's go up to level 2. Creatures you control have tapped to add a red or a blue. Spend this mana only to cast instant sorcery spells or to gain a class. And the next class doesn't really matter because we're stopping there. We're going to turn all those goblins into little mana rocks that I can tap to cast my spells. And then last but not least, we have Chief Engineer. So 1 and a blue for a 1/3 artifact spells you control have convoke. So you can tap creatures to help pay for your artifacts. Okay. Now, let's talk about how we don't die. Because our opponents are going to want to get us dead. How are we stopping them? All right, well, we're doing things like Wizard's Retort. So this one is a 3 mana counter spell. When this spell, if you control a wizard, it gets reduced by 1, so you're only paying blue, just like counterspell. Now, you have a number of wizards hiding in your deck. So you have some Niv Mizzets and a Balmoral. Like, there's enough wizards kicking around that you could get this for cheaper. It's not a guarantee, but you could get it, make it good. All right, we have a Rewind. All right, counterspell, untap 4 lands. Sounds good, make some more goblins. Snap, this is just a really good piece of interaction that I keep putting in my decks, so I'm never sad to cast a Snap. Insidious Will, this one is people have overlooked. 2 and 2 blue, counter target spell, or you may choose to new targets for target spell, so a deflection, or copy target instant or sorcery spell. You choose new targets for the copy. Interesting. I like it. This one's from Foundations. This is a refute. So this is counter target spell, draw a card, then discard a card. Seems good to me. We've got Ionize, which is another 3-mana counter spell. This is 1, a blue, and a red. Counter target spell. Ionize deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. Then we have Baral's Expertise. So Baral's Expertise has 3 blue for a sorcery. Return up to 3 target artifacts and or creatures to their owner's hand. And then you may cast a card with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. This is super handy. This cycle has largely been forgotten, save for Rishkar's Expertise, which is the green one. But this one I think is very good too. Bounce 3 things, and then you get to put a permanent on the battlefield. Seems really strong. And then we have more removal. So this is 2 red with an instant with Convoke. Stoke the Flame deals 4 damage to target creature or player. All right, usually you point that at somebody's creature, but you never know. Sometimes you need to point it at their face. All right, how are we going to get to the winning? All right, let's win. So we've got some ways to win. Okay, first off, we're casting instants and sorceries. We're going to have Talrun. Talrun just makes bodies. Sometimes they're good to block. Sometimes you can go tickle your opponents and hit them with a Drake. We have a Devilish Valet. So you're going to make a lot of tokens with Ovika, and this has trample, haste. It's 1/3, but it says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. It doesn't take long for this to get out of control, and if you cast a 6 mana or 7 mana spell and make a bunch of goblins, Devilish Valet's power is going to double and then double and double again. So it goes from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to, it doesn't matter now because they're probably dead. All right, you're only going to get 1 poke with this, and that's probably all you need. All right, then we've got a Balmor, Battle Mage. Well, if you can't kill them with Devilish Valet, all those tokens can get pumped. So if you start casting out Chain of Spells, they catch two, maybe they're 2/1s or 3/1s or 4/1s, and that usually ends the game pretty quick. We also have Brudiclad, 4 blue red for a legendary artifact creature for Phyrexian Artificer. It's a 4/4. Creature tokens you control have haste. Good to know, but not an imperative. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue Phyrexian Mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. So all those little goblins can at least get upgraded to being a 2/1 and tussling a little bit better. Maybe you have an extra token kicking around. Who knows? They all get big and swole. But you're going to find yourself with some chunkier tokens, and they have haste. All right. Then we get to the good stuff. All right. So we are running 3 Niv Mizzets. Niv Mizzet the Firemind, Niv Mizzet Perrin, and Niv Mizzet Visionary. And these play really well together. So this one says whenever you draw a card, you ping your opponent for 1 damage. You can deal it to a creature, I suppose, but you're usually taking it right to their face. This one, the Niv Mizzet Perrin, it can't be countered. Whenever you draw a card, Perrin deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a player casts an instant sorcery spell, you draw a card. So you draw a card, you ping your opponents. Both of these guys do it. Niv Mizzet Visionary. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. So this can go infinite, or this can go infinite, and you can keep drawing cards and keep pinging them and keep drawing cards and keep pinging them, and next thing you know, they're all dead. All right, so it seems like a good thing to put in your deck. All right. Otherwise, other ways that you can get people dead, you can clamp all your tokens. So Skull Clamp's in the list. Might be one of the best cards in the list. You clamp your token, it dies, you draw 2 cards, and it pings them for 2 and starts the death. All right. You have a Siege Gang Commander in here too, so if you need to sack things, this is a little tricky because it's gate kept by 1 and a red. But if you can sack creatures, sack your goblins, you can deal 2 damage to any target, including your opponents, to start triggering things. Hey, you need mana? Skirk Prospector says, I can sack goblins for reds. And that means to make Siege King Commander extra happy. Sounds good to me. Warstorm Surge says, well, check me out. I know what I can do. If you guys are going to be making a whole bunch of goblins, I'm going to ping your opponents down. Just let them come into play. Meanwhile, we also have Impact Tremors and Molten Gatekeeper over here just licking their chops saying, oh, we're going to cast some big things, and now we're going to make lots of goblins, and we're going to ping our opponents to death. And then, when we're done pinging them, we're going to sack them some more to Goblin Bombardment. And now our opponents are dead. Alright, but let's imagine this all gets removed. How else do we win? Well, we can win through just punching them in the face. So, Obelisk of Erd has got Convoke. And you can pick a creature type. And once you do, all creatures of that type get +2/+2. We're picking goblins, folks. So they're going to have 3/3s or 4/4 goblins. And they're going to have haste. And they're going to want to kill people. Okay. Goblin Chieftain gives those goblins haste and +1/+1. Perfect. Which means you can give Krenko haste. And make Krenko do the things where he makes millions and more goblins. And you're swimming with goblins. Martin Stromgall is the last one here, and he's really interesting. So 2 red for a 1/1 legend. If Martin Stromgall attacks, all other attacking creatures get +X/+X until X a turn, where X is equal to the number of attacking creatures. So if you attack with 5 creatures, they all get +5/+5. And so that seems pretty good. If Martin blocks, all their blocking creatures get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is equal to the number of blocking creatures. We're not blocking, we're blocking with our face. But Martin Stromgall is going to turn all those little goblins into big things. Because if you attack with him, they're all going to be, 8/8s or 9/9s or 10/10s. And then your opponents will be all very dead. Alright, so with the infinite combos in here, you have the potential to go off and your opponents, although it's not necessarily a surefire bet. What other thing that puts us into bracket 3 is these 3 cards. Temporal Mastery, Temporal Trespass, Incarnate Temporal Sundering. These are all extra turn cards. So you can chain into them and win the game, and everyone's sad. So that's why it's probably a bracket 3 deck. Even though there's not a single game-changing card in the list. All right. So if I wanted to cut this deck down from the $150 that it is right now, a couple of easy cuts. Martin Stromgall will get cut. You can cut the Goblin Chieftain and the Krenko pretty easily too. They are not imperative to the game plan. You can do lots of degenerate things without ever them. They're kind of like the cherry on top. All right, but you're going to want the mana rocks. You need the card draw. You need the outlets to turn all those bodies into something you can use. Either sack outlets, or it's going to be enter the battlefield to do damage. So you could, if you were talking about unlimited damage budget, you might want to take out something and put in a Terror of the Peaks, for instance, or Fiery Emancipation, or things like that. Also, sometimes Cavalcade is a good one. It's the one that says it's a red enchantment that whenever a creature with 1 power attacks, it deals 1 damage to your opponent's face. You can put Torbran in. There's lots of ways to sort of tweak this list without breaking the bank. You can also, the mana base is pretty straightforward. You don't need to spend a fortune on fancy things, so you can pass on the steam vents and the shock lands and the all the expensive stuff. You could probably get away with mostly basics. And they've printed some pretty decent rare lands that have come pretty far down in price. So maybe a Stormcarved Coast, or maybe a Sulphur Falls, or things of that nature, which are just useful cards to make sure that your deck can cast the spells on time. All right, so there's Ovika for you and some ins and outs to help make your deck pretty good. Let me know if you check out the show, if you check out the list down below. If you like it, maybe give it a try, suit it up, take it to your LGS next time for FNM, see if you dig it. If you like what you see and you want to check out more, you can check out our podcast each and every week on your favorite podcast app, or you can follow us on your favorite social media platform, because we are there in all our forms. All right, so there we go, folks. Ovika, Enigma Goliath. Have yourselves a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye.